Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for listening in. Today, we're going to talk about how much money you should have by age 55, which is part four of a five-part series of how much you should have at each age to stay on time on target. But before we get started, as a reminder, this is an educational show and should not be considered as personal financial advice. Full disclosure information is available at OTOT.now.com. So let's go ahead and get started with our show. So if you remember, we have the five steps of staying on time on target, and the first one is knowing where you are and the total number of engines you have working for you. So at 55, you're either into a second career or you're deep into your heavy earning years of your first career if you stuck with the same kind of career throughout, or you climb the corporate ladder and switched around. You should be at your peak earning years at 55. So a lot of responsibility comes with that. You can make a lot of money right now, but you might not be able to make a lot of money forever doing what you're doing. So you need to assess how much money you have, how many different engines are working. You should have possibly two 401ks from both partners if you're in a relationship. Should have an IRA, same thing, two if you're in a relationship. College savings, you may actually be already spending these now on your children. Your children may either be entering college or out of college or out into the workforce at 55, or have left the house, or maybe not have left the house, right? So those are things you kind of need to assess as far as not only the money that you have, but where you're going to need to allocate your money as you continue to work. And remember, there's loans for all these things, but there's no retirement loans. So your primary focus should be on where you are in relation to retirement. And at 55, you may be looking to retire any day now. If you've done an excellent job of saving, investing, you've started early, you've met all the numbers, you've done the right things, you could be able to walk away, either one or both. If you happen to be in a relationship, being able to walk away, or if you don't believe in the traditional cliff retirement, which is where you step away completely and then golf 24/7, and or you might look to downsize or go from a full-time job to more of a contractor job, maybe we're doing the same job for the same company just for half the hours. So all of those decisions are on your plate at 55. So assess how many engines you have working for you, and again, generally the more the better, and then how you can use those to get to where you want to go. So that's knowing where you are and the number of engines you have working for you. Second step of the five-step process of on time on target is knowing if you're on track. So as a review, at age 25, you just wanted to be started. And again, if you're 55, you please mentor your 25-year-olds in your life, whether it's your kids or whoever that's young, of the hey, start early, right? Most important thing. So at 25, you need to have started. 35, you should have one times your annual salary set aside. We talked in the last episode, at 45, you should have three times your annual salary. And again, one of that is just simply the annual salary you had at 35 doubling, which is 2x. And then you've saved and invested another one, about 10% of your salary or over a decade, and that gives you a 3x. Well, now to follow the math along from age 45 to 55, the 3x that you had at 45 should, at 7.2%, with under the rule of 72, would double in 10 years. So again, you're assuming you're invested in the market at least at a moderate or a moderately aggressive level for those to get that 7.2%. It's not going to happen in your bank account, and it won't happen with CDs. So from age 45 to 55, you have 10 years. So the 3x you had at 45 would double. So that gives you your 6x, and then saving 10% of your salary for 10 years is going to give you that additional x, and that adds up to 7 times your annual salary. So if you're a six-figure person, 100,000, that would be, you'd wanted to have 700,000 of all of your accounts when you add them up by the time you're 55. If you're a $200,000 a year person, then that would add up to 1.4 million. So those are the sort of numbers that you're targeting. Now, I will take a break from the math momentarily because several of you have asked, Steve, that doesn't work for me because my annual salary changes. And I got that. And of course it does, right? We talked very briefly at the beginning that it is somewhat of a moving target. If you stay in your same field, it could be increasing every year, or hopefully not decreasing. But if you're kind of in the same field, you should expect that. Possibly you're in a career field that has a bonus, or you have compensation tied to your performance to where it does vary. So here's my point with the annual salary. So I want you to think about this is it's not we use the math on the annual salary because that's kind of easy to do. You can look at when you fill out your taxes, normally in April or now it's July this year. But when you fill out your taxes, you know what you made. That's why I like using that number because it's available. What the purpose of this exercise is really, when you continue the math out, is how much money do you need to retire at a certain quality of life level? So let's make that comparison. If you are a $100,000 wage earner for most of your career, you live in a house, you have cars, and a lifestyle that pretty much has been supported by around $85,000. You have taxes out of that, you have your savings out of that. So that's kind of the lifestyle that you're used to. And all of this math assumes that you want to maintain that same lifestyle. So let's talk about some contingencies. If you are in the FIRE movement, the financial independence retire early movement, this whole math equation doesn't work at all. And I want to acknowledge that. In a FIRE movement, you are oversaving and investing to up to 20, 30, 40, 50% of your salary for the heavy earning years from that 25 to 40, and trying to save and invest enough money so you can step away completely, or part-time. You step away completely from the rat race and then kind of do what you want for the rest of your life. But it doesn't assume that you stay at that same level of salary. You reduce the salary and then you make your money last. Most people are not on the FIRE movement. Some that are, hey, there's different math that involves you. So for most of us, though, it's you stay in this kind of progressively increasing salary situation until your peak earning years. Maybe it tapers off past 60. That's a guess. Everybody's situation is different. But if it fluctuates, or you've made life choices to where you want to value more time from your family, more stability of schedule, more freedom of schedule, maybe less working hours where you've dialed your salary down, those are all choices to bring in less money. However, what you're really trying to do with this math is you want about 15 times the quality of life that you want in retirement saved away. I use salary because that kind of guides how we've lived so far. And people who live a certain way for 20 to 30 years, it's very difficult to live differently. I will use an example. If you are a upper middle class couple that's maybe made $100,000 their whole time, maybe you're retired military, maybe you're living in a retirement community, and you're used to only spending, gosh, 60,000 a year, 70,000 a year. Well, at 80 years old, you're not going to magically be able to get yourself to spend more money. You just won't, because those habit patterns are in there. Now, that's a good problem to have. If you're used to 65,000 a year and you have more than that now, well, that's a good problem, right? And then your portfolio just continues to grow. You probably aren't taking full market risk at that point, but then you have tons of extra money. Now let's look at it from the other way. If you're used to a $200,000 a year lifestyle from age 35 to 55, and again, we're talking about 55 today, well, if you're a $200,000 wage earner, I'm telling you, you need 15 times, or excuse me, 7 times that right now, and then at retirement, you'll need 15 times that. So you'll need 1.5 million now at age 55, and you'll need 3 million in retirement at 65 to be able to continue to live in the same lifestyle, the same house that you're in. Maybe it's kind of large. Maybe you have really nice cars. Maybe you're used to going out to eat quite a bit. Maybe you have lots of friends that you get together, and when you do, you spend lots of money on vacations and hanging out and things like that. It's very difficult if you're used to a $200,000 quality of life to be able to now dial that down to a $120,000 life. You would think, oh gosh, that'd be easy to do. Some people do have that ability. However, some people don't. And there's some interesting things, like you might be forced out of your house when you don't want to leave it. You might just have to sell it because it's appreciated, and you're like, gosh, we just can't continue to stay in this house once I leave the workforce. So at 55, again, it's 7 times your annual salary, or if that's a moving target for some of you, pick an average, or If that's a moving target, I mean, it's not a moving target, obviously it's an average, but if the average doesn't make sense, picture ahead at 10, 15 years from now, how much are you going to really spend? If you spend $10,000 a month, that's $120,000 of spending. So that would equate kind of to a $140,000 salary. If you spend 6,000 a month times 12, that's 72,000. That equates to about a $90,000 a year salary. So that's how you can use the math from the appreciation phase while you're earning to kind of picture what retirement's going to look like. So that's the math involved. Again, we want to be at 55 at 7 times our annual salary, or if you want to use whatever you project out in retirement, then you can do that. Okay, moving on to step 3, you need to defend against known threats and mitigate others. You've had insurance in place for years. You've had home insurance, car insurance, and of course health insurance. You either had it from work or like I did with a pension, and health insurance came with it. You may have disability insurance as well. Now you're also looking at potentially long-term care insurance. A little too early for that unless you're running into health issues early. But the good news is, if you've had term life insurance at 55, you probably don't need it. If you're on time on target, you're going to be self-insured. You have enough money set aside to be able to handle any situation that happens to you. If you're a little shy, then you can pick a $250,000 term policy. I would take it for maybe 10 years, maybe 500,000 if you're way behind. Take that for 10 years. But you may need a little bit of life insurance. But the good news is those life insurance premiums will start to fade out as you become self-insured. Again, the unknown threats, you don't know what you don't know. We talked about at age 45. At that point, if you've had kids, all the financial the bills are coming due, because at every direction, right? Like flying over Baghdad was everybody shooting at you. At that point, at 55, if you chose to get married and have kids and you're still married, well, largely the kid equation should have moved through your financial plan, right? They either graduated high school, went off into the workforce, or they went to college and should be entering the workforce, or they're professional students, i.e. that, I mean, that's a little bit tongue in cheek, but getting a master's or a PhD in something is kind of like, okay, well, that's on you. You're the child for most people. Fund that, take your student loans, get that degree, because you're going to have a nice high-paying job coming out the other side of that. So your expenditures related to children should have decreased. That's not going to be correct for everybody. But you don't know what you don't know. Is somebody getting sick in the family? Maybe a child gets married early and gets divorced. Maybe you're going through a divorce. There's other things where you can all of a sudden, the financial equation is now chopped and split amongst individuals, that's the unknown threat that you just don't know that's out there. Also at 55, your parents, okay, add on 25 to 35 years, that puts your parents at that 70 to 80 time frame. Most folks are good to go at that age. Most are still independent, living on their own. Maybe they're together. Maybe there's just one, depending on the health situation. But certainly a parent at anywhere in that range could, for any reason, health or relationship issues, come back into your home. And that's now another dependent. And you need to allocate some resources appropriately, right? For another person that's kind of counting on you to provide for them, maybe not completely, but at least somewhat, at least through shelter and probably some love and support from home. So those are the unknown threats that you need to defend again out there. And then at 55, you really need to take a look again, like you do every 10 years, at least, about your financial goals. Debt should no longer be an issue. If you're outspending what you're making and you're picking up credit card debt, that's on you. You're robbing your future self to fund your current self. So don't piss your future self off, right? So kind of, if you're outspending what you're bringing in a month, you've got to fix that. And you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You just have to adult. Every now and then we have to remind ourselves that we're adults. And at 55, you certainly should go, yeah, this isn't working. We need to kind of dial it down a little bit on expenditures, get things under control, and then we'll be fine. Houses, you may even have your house paid off if that was a goal. You might have moved. Maybe you're in a big mini McMansion that you lived for your child raising years, and now you're looking to downsize. That is a great way to bring your finances under control, as well as expenses, right? Big houses are expensive, excuse me. Generally, you're going to have folks help, you're paying folks maybe for the yard, or maybe you have somebody that comes into your home and helps clean. Those expenses can go away if you downsize and get something a little smaller to manage. But that's, it's a life choice. Retirement should largely be taken care of, but you're still at 55, you're doing your systematic, or maybe you're kind of making a last run, making sure you max everything out because you can see retirement in the future. College should be behind you, but you could be gifting for your children, but you could be gifting money to grandkids now, maybe starting 529s for them. So anyhow, there's some different goals you're going to have to tackle there, but you do want to at 55 look forward and kind of think about the 3 stages of retirement. Again, the first stage is that go stage, right? The let's go do everything we wanted to do, whether you're a couple or an individual, whatever. There's the stuff that you need the energy and money to go do that you've always wanted to do. There's the slow go phase where I don't really have the energy to get out and do everything I want to do, but I do still want to do some things. And then of course there's the no-go stage, which can, your health can all of a sudden change you from any of these stages into the no-go stage. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it does, then you really can't do a whole lot, but you're still around. You could have 10, 20 years of runway in front of you. So you need to think about those phases. And of those phases, the most expensive by far is that go phase. So I do want to tell you, if you undersave and underinvest up to the point where you're 55, you may hit a retirement decision somewhere between 55 and 65 or 70, wherever it is, and you may hit that go phase. And if you are behind on your retirement saving and investing at the go phase, that's a problem because you won't feel like it's fiscally responsible to go do all those things when you still have the energy to do it. And then you won't do it. And then the go phase gets behind you. And you get to the slow go phase, and now you're like, well, crap, we've made it. We've got our money now, but we've kind of lost the energy and we've missed the window of that go phase. So really important you time that correctly so you have the resources available where you feel comfortable spending in that go phase. I talk to a lot of folks that as soon as they retire, they just want to kind of hunker down because they're scared, and rightfully so, might need to talk to somebody. They're scared of spending money right there because they realize, gosh, I could be around another 30, 40 years with no income. So something to really think about there, as you fine tune your goals throughout life as to what you think your retirement's going to look like. Are you going to downsize? Are you going to get a vacation home? There's what are we going to do? Are we moving south for good? Are we moving near the kids possibly? So a lot of things to think about there for step 4. And then last 5, as circumstances change your plan. If you once you hit retirement phase, your financial plan becomes your number 1 job because you can sit and monitor it kind of all the time and really know where your money's going and kind of keep up to date on. If you're still at 55 at your peak earnings capacity and you're out there crushing it in the workforce, you may be the busiest you've ever been. Maybe the kids are up and gone and you've thrown yourself into the work because you only have 5, 10, 15 years left. And you're traveling, and you may be overwhelmed by work, which is a good thing. But just like anything else in life, somebody has to be taking care of the finances. So if it's not you, bring somebody else in to kind of make sure you check these things. And again, there's free tools available. Whether you go with professional advice or not, that's up to you. But generally, in relation to your net worth, you will be paying pennies for to bring somebody else into it to help you out. So that's what I've got for you today at age 55. I appreciate you listening in. Please reach out through ototnow.com with any questions or comments. And here's to you fighting the good fight every day to be on time, on target with your financial goals. Thanks again.